All right, everyone. Welcome to the Technologist Forum. James Hicks here from Hicks New Media. And today they're all good shows, but this one's obviously going to be a good show. I got my guy, Corey Gumbs, here. Corey Gumbs is the founder of the BPA, the Black Podcasters Association. They're doing big things. They're based out of New York, but he's global, right? This man is out there making some serious noise in terms of assisting podcasters and creators do their thing, spread their message, understand how to do the business aspect. I wanted to have an opportunity to sit down and have a real honest conversation with him about doing all the things, getting things done, really prioritizing tasks and the struggles around that and staying on top of your game. So we're just going to have an open conversation. And with that, y'all get ready for Corey Gums. Brother, I'm gonna bring you on, right? We're gonna have this conversation. We're gonna have this conversation. Corey, how you living, man?
I'm doing good, and you? I'm glad to be
Man,
here.
listen, appreciate you. We here doing what it is that we do, talking that talk. Founder of the Black Podcast Association, multiple chapters across, I'm gonna say across the US, across the world too. I'm making you global.
I mean,
So
technically we are.
see, there you go. So let's talk about that. Talk about the value that the BPA brings. One, I want to talk about why you started it, why you felt the need to do that, and coming from your history. So, if you don't mind, that 35,000 foot level, why you felt the need to start the BPA and what it means to you in this day and time, 2025.
Woo,
Yeah, it is.
man.
We go right into it, though. I don't mess around, brother. We go right into it. Go ahead now.
I mean, just like, I mean, for like a lot of people, it was a call. Actually it was a challenge.
Mm,
I was, I started officially in as a professional podcast space right before the pandemic hit. I was just trying to do my own little mobile podcast recording studio out here in New York City. And like many people, I was just traversing through all the Facebook groups and as many resources as I could find on podcasting, so I could learn more about what I was trying to do. And my experience in some of these groups or weren't the most pleasant, or I didn't like the. I personally didn't like the interactions. I might have been reading into it too much. I don't know,
mm, mm-hmm,
but when it came down to conversations about content, getting equipment, stuff like that. I just felt like there was a disconnect in some of the exchanges I was seeing between our white counterparts and some people of color. Historically, people of color up until the pandemic were a very small percentage of the podcasting industry, and I'll just keep it real. So it's the bro, that whole
mm-hmm.
bro culture.
Yeah.
And some people would just, I don't know, if, like I said, originally I thought it was like, oh, they're racist, but no, as I got to uh, really explore what I was doing, I was like, okay, maybe it's just a cultural thing. It could just be, cultural, just you're a different part of the country or access or whatever. But the attitude was kind of like, oh, this is how you do content. This is, and people were like, but that's not me. Or,
Yeah.
I don't want to code switch, and I've had that conversation with a lot of people behind the scenes, like when they talk about their experiences. And, I was talking to a friend about it and she was like, well, if you don't like it, just start your own. And I always say this line, like Jordan, I took it personally. So so he showed me how to set up a Facebook group, and we actually launched that in March of 2020. And as we know, what that month was a really pivotal month in U.S. history because COVID landed here in New York City, and it just went straight through us. And I was left at a crossroads of, do I pursue this business model I just created that I literally was going to launch in March of 2020, or not knowing what was going on with COVID at first, and then I started this group, and it was like, a friend of mine passed away, and I was like, okay, this is serious. We're not doing this. I mean, I knew it was serious when I was watching what was going on overseas, but now it's hitting closer to home. So
Yeah.
that door closed, but the floodgates opened up with the community the Facebook group that I started, and by September of that year, we had like 1,800 members.
Wow.
So a lot of people jumping into podcasts during that time, and I was just trying to figure out. I knew ultimately I wanted a space that was a safe space for Black creators to come in, um, and be able to have the conversations without judgment. Um, be able to ask a question however they needed to say it. One of the biggest problems with the world is people think Black people are monoliths, and we're not. We have so many different vernaculars and slang, and I just wanted to be a place where you can be yourself. The flip side of it was, excuse me, was I was looking at the content that was being put out, and I was like, "This, we have to raise the standard." You know, the people
Mm,
like, "Why my audience not growing? Why am I not doing this? Why I'm not getting this?" And I'm like, "But your audio sounds terrible. I can't understand what you're saying. It's a painful." You know, me being a technical audio guy, people don't understand that audio can be very painful for certain people, and for me, it was extremely painful. So, and now I know why, but we'll talk about that later. But long story short, it was like, let's. How do I come to create a place where we can raise the bar, educate people, give them a space for them to be comfortable, ask any question they want, make it a and really become successful at what they want to do. And that was the original plan. Now, when I first started, we weren't called the Black Podcast Association. I didn't really. I had a basis of what I was thinking coming from music. I was like, okay, we don't have an official trade organization. We don't have any official trade, you know, in podcasting, period. And I was just looking for organizations. I was like, well, go with what you know, ASCAP, BMI, those type, you know, the
mhm,
publishing house, those publishing organizations that artists tend to. And I use ASCAP because you know they're here in New York City, but they used to do like a lot of like artist development, and you know, as part of your membership, you can go to panel discussions. So I was like, I knew I wanted to go that route, and I knew I wanted to be like a membership based thing because I feel like people, when people buy into something, they take it more seriously. And I wanted us to be so what eventually became was our three, what our three pillars are now, which is community support, education, and then advocacy. Because also at that time, I saw they were going to start the podcast academy, and when I was looking at it at the time, it wasn't very diverse, I'll say. And I was just scared, being a history person, I was just scared that here's a new medium where people of color, black people, people of color are going to be a part of this. It's going to grow, and it's going to come a part where the money dries up. And since we've always been on the outside of it, we always figure out how to make money. We saw it in music, we saw it in TV, we saw it in the movie industry, and a lot of these different industries. And I wanted us to make sure we were prepared for when the eyes turn towards us, when the money dries up, and they look at us saying, "How are you guys still thriving?" That we were
my
prepared.
goodness.
You know, the same experience that I saw in the music industry, which is you wind up selling out and giving up your product. You know, you wind up for the sake of somebody putting money in front of you that you've never phantom ever seeing in your life, and selling your IP and everything like that. So I wanted us really to be prepared for the, you know, have our table set. So when they came to try to eat off our table, we were ready and could be like, we're not doing that here.
My goodness. Corey said, when they come to eat off our table,
I mean, that's what
mm,
happened.
that, that right there, and I appreciate you going into detail about that. I mean, just the whole fact of, and again, look, we being 100, right? We keep it in real. You say, folks that didn't want to code shift, folks that wanted to show up how they show up and be themselves. I mean, that says a lot because, especially, yeah, you started from the audio side, but now you're also on the video side, and that shows through on video, man. If I was to show up any differently than I do any other time on these videos, people be like, "Nah, that ain't him." And right for you to also show up either on audio or video and be different to try to be commercial or try to be whatever, that would limit your credibility. So I mean, that's dope that you actually have that as had that as part of your initial foundation, right? We want to come, we want to be who we want to be, we want to be who we are. We don't need to change. We just want to put our messages out there. Give us the tools, give us the resources so we can do that. Um, did you ever think that it would grow to what it is in such a short period of time? Cause
I
you global, brother. You
I'm
come on.
trying to be
I'm gonna give you these
I'm trying to
flowers.
decide if I'm gonna be
You
modest, if I'm gonna be modest about it, or if I'm gonna be if I'm
we're
gonna
gonna
focus.
keep. Come on now. We're gonna keep it
Alright,
real. Tell the folks.
I'm gonna be Southside Jamaica,
Yes,
Queens, you
sir.
know, we get the money attitude. No, I knew what I wanted to do. I like my mentality is we're gonna do something. Why stop? Why, you know, go as far as you could take it. And I was, and when I started this community, I was looking, you know, the industry was just starting to blossom. You know, there was podcast industry during COVID was just going crazy. It was just it was completely wild. But I knew it was going to go global. It had to go global, right? So, and I knew that, be, you know, like I said, I love history. I read a lot of history. So I know that there's power in numbers, and I was like, I saw podcasting as an opportunity for us to bridge a lot of gaps on a global scale between in the diaspora, right? I've live in New York City, so I get to experience so many different groups of people, and I'll for the sake of conversation, Black people from different parts of the world. And unfortunately, we have our own issues because of colonialism and all that stuff of attitudes that we have towards each other. Growing up in school, going to school with African kids from Africa, kids from, grow up in the neighborhood with kids from the Caribbean. Yeah, it's all fun and games. Everybody's cool, but you have those stereotypical jokes. And I was like, here's an opportunity for us to use this medium that has a low barrier of entry. Plus, it can't be gate kept the way like the way other things are kept because of thank God because of the internet. Like I always tell people, you can always spin up your own server, put your RSS feed on there, and serve it from there. Right? May not be the most economical way to do it, but you have that opportunity. You can build your own website. You can't stop me from putting out a podcast.
Yeah.
Right? So I saw it as an opportunity for us to come together and try to bridge some of these gaps, heal some of these wounds. And I also knew that eventually there's going to be a ceiling here in America or in the West that eventually they're going to have to look for other markets. And I was looking at Africa. I was looking even like in this Latino and South American areas. I had one of my first editors that I used to outsource to is living in I think Argentina or Chile. I always
Wow.
forget. But I remember when I first met him, he was looking for work, and he was just telling me how like out there like it hasn't taken off yet. And I remember I used to keep telling him, "Look, bro, I'm gonna try to bring you as much business as I can, but just hold. If you can hold on because it's going to come." And now, he's when I reach out to him, he's like, "Yo, I'm swamped." So I'm like, "I told you it was coming, right?" So, but I looked at it as an opportunity. I was like, "Why?" Why not go global? Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. Yeah. Not go global. And if you shoot, like they say, shoot for the moon, shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. That was the
Hmm.
kind of add towards it. So that's what I was looking at. Like, do we have an opportunity to come together collectively to make sure that we have powers and one voice, same power in the numbers, or and just start have changing our mindset on how we work together in this space. So that was really where I was like shooting for, on a global scale.
Cool. Cool. You touched on the reason that I initially reached out to you to have this conversation, and kind of in that story about your guy over in Argentina or Chile, wherever the case would be, and there being so much now. So you announced it, you produced it, you created it, the BPA. Now you got an influx because now you really hit a chord, right? A gang of folks now want to be involved. Now you're growing. You're not just in your area in New York. You're all over the place. There's a lot of activity going on. And you put a post out on LinkedIn that I responded to, and it was really around managing all this time. So it's a good problem to have. The fact that again, there's so much reach, there's so much interest, there's so many people wanting to join chapters and things of that nature. But how are you managing all of this activity? Right, because the coordination piece, you got balls juggling in the air, right? You got the admin side, you got the tactical side, the strategic side. Every time I look, you on stage somewhere, or you at some reception doing that kind of thing. That's a lot. I know I struggle with again trying to maintain so much, but again, I wanted to as far as and as deep as you want to go, and you're comfortable going into this conversation. Just how are you managing all of the activity that keeps going as you grow?
I asked myself the same question, but man, I am failing miserably at it, to be honest with you. Despite all the optics, it's a one man show. But I will say this: you asked one thing, well, like like I didn't expect the support from the community, and when I tell people I use the word community and what I'm doing, it's in the truest sense. Many of our members, they love the community, they support it, they promote it, they advocate for it, they show up for things, and I think that's where the managing comes in, is that I'm able to lean on some members in the community when I need help.
Mm,
Part of part of the problem is that they sometimes are kicking down my door saying, "You need help. Tell us what you need to do." And sometimes I'm so, and the past year I've learned why, like, things are a little chaotic for me, but, um I was diagnosed with neurodivergence with autism, and I'm now probably going down the ADHD route. So it's a little bit. It's been a little struggle for me, especially now that I know the reason why.
yeah.
Before I was just operating off of ignorance, right? But long story short, like some of my members, they did an intervention on me a couple weeks ago where I'm cooking dinner and I get my phone is going off and I'm like, why is everybody texting me? And then they're like, you got to get on Google Meet, and they're like, no, we can't let you keep doing this. We're stepping up. We're going to figure out how to help you. And now we're working on like advisors and you get more organized inside the community to help offset and really get us to the where wants to get us. And I think the hardest part is, when this is your baby and this is something you put a lot of your blood, sweat, and tears, sacrifice into. Um, it's sometimes hard to let it go,
Yeah.
and you have to embrace the fact that you have your limitations. I can be very stubborn about my limitations, and playing. I think some of it comes from playing sports, right? Like you're faced with a challenge, and you're like, I got to overcome this. So for me, it was like now it's like getting to the point where I'm now starting to embrace more people coming in and saying, "Hey, I want to help. Where do you need help?" And me be more honest where I need help with. So that's been the
Yeah.
struggle with it.
And
But
I
it also
think,
comes with a lot of sacrifice. You got to tell sometimes you got to tell
yeah,
family
talk
no.
about that.
I think I'm blessed a little bit that my kids are older. My oldest is 26 years old. He's a grown man. My youngest son's about to graduate high school. My daughter's 10. And I got to give props to their mom. To my baby mamas. Um, but they're sometimes you got to sacrifice. I mean, one of the running jokes in the community used to always be, people would like, I went to bed at night, you're on here, and then I wake up in the morning and you're on here. And they're like, I would literally get text messages, Corey, go to bed. Like people would literally be concerned about my health or my sleeping habits, not knowing that that's how I've always been like that, even when I
Yeah.
was younger.
Yeah.
But it does come with sacrifices, and you do have to, it's gotten in between some romantic relationships, it's gotten in between family relationships, friendships and stuff. But at the end of the day, I have this vision, and I have a community I have to answer to that I'm very protective of and that I care about. And I'm like, I mean, you do have to figure out where the balance is at, but that's the part I'm working on.
Yeah, no, man, and again, appreciate you for going into that because I struggle with a lot of that as well. Especially, right? You've built something, you formalized an idea, you actually implemented and deployed the idea, you came up with something, people resonated with it. Now it's launched. Now you want to make sure that the ship is going in a specific direction. But
Right.
what's cool is sounds like, and not just summarizing, putting words in your mouth, but you surrounded yourself with folks that have the same idea on the same trajectory. You got some captains and some lieutenants that say, you know what, yeah, we see who we are and we see what we have to offer. Let's help Corey out and pick up the pace and pick up some of the slacking and kind of help with that. So that I think that's a huge piece of surrounding yourself with the right type of folks who are on the same mission because you don't want to have distractions amongst the leadership. You don't want to have distractions amongst the ones that are helping you plan activities down the road as well. So I think that's telling as well, man. If you were not trying to give a moral to the story, you did by saying you
I
got the
mean,
right cats around you.
I will say this, man. I have, like, yourself included, like I have been blessed on this journey where the people who perhaps I've crossed, I've met some wonderful people, some some dope individuals, some very intelligent people. And some of it, despite my New York bravado that you might, behind the scenes or in conversation that you might come out, I think part of it has been I don't like using the word humble, but I've been humble about how I approach things. I meet people where they're at. I treat people with respect. I'm not I don't pull rank. And I got this past week and somebody was like, no, Corey, you need to start understanding, who you are and start operating in that capacity. Because
Mm,
I was never one of those people that like have a bunch of alphabets behind my name and
yeah.
like brag about certifications and all that stuff. I'm like, and I do suffer from imposter syndrome a lot too, especially I'm in a room and like it's weird when sometimes people who've been in this space longer than I have call me or ask me for my opinion on something. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to learn from you. That's why I'm on the phone with you. I called you.
You know
I'm
what I'm
the
saying? I'm
guy.
trying to get some info.
Yeah, but the people in our community and the people who, I mean, the one thing I do always tell people I never expected from this was like the friendships. Like,
Mm,
you know, these are people I've I'm a part of I go to their family functions when I have an opportunity to, or I show up for, I support what they're doing outside of podcasting, or what, these are people who some people have been there when I was going through some stuff, and they were lending ears. So I think that's the other part about it, is that, like, when I say it's a community, it's a true community. And you got to, like I said in our last comment, sometimes you got to know when to give and you got to know when to take. And I think that's been the great thing. And honestly, I just want to see everybody win. So I just try to do
Mm,
whatever I can to help anybody to, I come across. Like, I'm always asking, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Always let me, I don't always ask for things in return. I'm not a transactional person in that capacity. So I think that resonates with people. And that's why when they see me in a certain position, sometimes they step up and say, hey, I want to help you. So
that's cool.
I think that's where a lot of it comes from. But I sometimes I gotta pinch myself and remind myself that, not everybody has this opportunity when they start something to have a circle or a network of genuinely good people that really enjoy what they do and love what they do, and have an attitude where they want to see everybody that they associate with win along in the process. So um
I was
sometimes I gotta.
let me say this, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you think about that again. This may be a cultural thing that a lot of times we got a crab in a barrel mentality, right? A lot of times we see one person winning, and folks around them will be like, "Oh, man, look at Corey over there trying to read, right? Or look at Corey over there trying to do this and do that.
Right.
He either need to bring us with him, or why is he trying to show out, that kind of thing." But it's not that, right? And so I mean,
I mean,
that's typically the
I've
stereotype.
I've had some people do that to me,
Yeah.
but, and I think for me coming, I think my life experience from trying other businesses, as well as being in the music industry when I was younger and trying to chase that dream, and just managing people, you gotta, and being a huge movie buff and history buff, like, it's like I think I understand human nature. And I love The Godfather, right? I always tell people the beginning of The Godfather is how I embrace that. Like, when at his daughter's wedding and he's doing these favors for people, and Vito Corleone's like, I may call on you, I may never call on you, right? And I understand. I always tell people, like, in this podcast, one of the first things I learned when I got into space is that this is a selfish creative endeavor for people. So a lot of times people are in their own little circles, in their own little worlds, because they're focusing on their creative side, their talent, this creative bug that they have in trying to get a podcast started or even get their business going. So you got, so sometimes it does appear as a crab in a barrel mentality. It's not always a crab in a barrel mentality. Sometimes you just got to get to the root of why this person might feel that way. And sometimes it is genuine hate, and it's just genuine. I'm jealous of what this person has done for themselves.
Wow. That's y'all didn't think y'all was gonna get like a little master class or a little lesson here, a little
Now you call me on
sociology.
a good Tuesday. It's a good Tuesday.
You know what I'm saying? We breaking it down, folks. Listen, I'm gonna make sure all of your links to the BPA, your IG page, and your Substack, your newsletter page are in the description, so folks can definitely check you out on that. Let me ask you this though: what's because you started in audio, and now you're branching out, black podcasters, and I think typically you're thinking audio, and are you still leaning mainly in the audio, or are you starting to branch out and do more video as well? And if so, how have you found that shift?
I think so I call myself a podcast purist. I am an audio person. Clearly you can see in my background. I love, the root of podcasting is audio. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about video, being somebody who, when I first started, like, look investigating into video, I would watch a lot of directors and people talk about movie making, because I was the only resource I could think of that was close to what we're doing now. Um, One of the big things that always the themes that always kept coming up is, like, audio. The movie industry took off when audio was applied to movies. That's when it
Mm,
skyrocketed. And I think people try to pick and choose, like, oh, I'm gonna do video, I'm gonna do audio. And I'm like, but what about you have your audience like me, who gets distracted by video, and I can listen while I'm working, but I can't watch while I'm working. Right? So why would you ignore the audio
wow.
portion of what you're doing? Even if you're doing live stream, like you're on of YouTube or something, you should still probably have an audio version via a podcast for your for your audience members that one might be running or doing something, riding a bike. Like I'm about to start riding my bike now that it's spring. I can listen to audio while I'm doing it. I'm just not
Yeah.
gonna be watching the audio while I'm, especially out here in these New York City streets.
Yeah, you need to pay attention,
I'm
brother.
not being
You
a
never
civil,
I
right,
know because I've done it before. You need to pay attention out there.
so but long story short, I think audio is a big component. Now for me, when I first started my mobile studio, people were asking me about video, and I was like, I was very headstrong, like no, because I think it increases the production, it increases the cost of production, time wise, monetary wise. It's not cheap. Audio, oh, I mean, and you can do even video right now at this point with your cell phone and stuff. You got people filming. I mean, and it gets more complicated than this, but people are filming movies with iPhones, right? So your phone is more than capable of helping you at least get started in that capacity. But for me, I was leaving it on the table, but I was like, I'm leaving money on the table. So that's how I started getting into the video stuff. And like, okay, at least if I know how to shoot video for a live stream or podcast that wants video footage while I'm doing this part, I can make more money. I'm starting to realize, and part of the thing with BPA, even though with the Black Podcast Association, I've started over the past couple of years, thanks to being in conversations with you, Steve, and other people, I'm starting to realize that even though we're concentrating on podcasts, we're content creators, we're media. You're building a
Mm,
media empire. So, like even running my newsletter, I was very headstrong about starting a newsletter, but running that, and I'm like, oh, there's so many different avenues that this one piece of content that you made, whether it's on your podcast or for video, can can have different paths that lead people back to where you're at. So long story, long road to, long way to answer your question. I've embraced video. I'm trying to get more into it because of managing my time and stuff. It's a little bit harder for me to sit down, but I know that once I figure out my workflow, it'll get more easier for me. It'll get easier for myself to start getting comfortable. Well, truthfully, I didn't want to be on video when I started this. I wanted to be in the shadows. I've always been like that. When I was
mm,
doing music, I learned, I got stage fright. I froze on stage. My boys had to do my verse on one of the first talent shows we ever performed at. I knew right there this wasn't for me. I always never liked public speaking, believe it or not. I always wanted to be in the studio. I wanted to be behind the scenes. And it was my community that encouraged me to start being more front and center and doing interviews and doing videos and doing when we had done our own little spotlight show we were doing in our community and stuff. So that helped make me get more comfortable with this. But now I'm understanding that there has to be some kind of video component of what you're doing in order to reach, if you want to reach a broader audience.
yeah. That mixture of both, though. I mean that matters, and I think that's another good
Yeah.
takeaway for the creators, the solopreneurs, the folks that are out there doing this kind of thing. There has to be a mixture of both.
You
Yeah,
have to adapt.
yeah, you have to adapt. And the story that you said again, I mean, just making it plain. You're at the gym, you're riding your bike or something. You don't got time to be looking at the video. As long as the audio is clear, as long as the audio says a message, you'll gain subscribers. You'll gain a broader audience by having clear, concise audio. So that's dope right there. That's something that folks can definitely take away. Um, I put the newsletter up while you were talking just now, and now I just want to ask a couple questions because again, I'm curious, just selfishly. Uh, Platforms for news, there's a lot of them out there, right? And I talk to a lot of folks a lot of time about what to use, uh, what to look at based on their scenario and their use cases. What have you found for creating? Because this is a whole new content and communication medium for you, right? By having a newsletter, how has that grown your audience and what platform are you leveraging and utilizing? I know the answer, but folks need to hear it from you. Are you using to push out that message to your community? And are you seeing positive returns from that?
Um, so we're using Substack. We got on Substack about it's been almost 2 years now. Wow, time flies. We got on Substack. Somebody had recommended it to me. Like, as you know, uh, I tend to listen to what my circle tells me, and I check out these tools, and we use a service that kind of I had to put myself on timeout on because I was found myself just getting a lot of lifetime deals for no reason and sitting on these platforms. And I just, the past year I was just like, I just got to narrow it down to a couple of tools and just commit to those tools. And I'm also the type of person, once I start using something, I just use it. Like it's hard for me to move away unless I have an idea and I hit a roadblock. So
Mm.
for the newsletter, we use Substack, and I think what attracted me to it was, like, they had the podcast option, but it was just mainly like, oh, I think I liked the part of it was, like, I don't know what is the algorithm, but it was like it pushes you in front of audiences on their
Yeah, the
platform.
recommendations.
For me, and truthfully, Imma keep it real, it was just me being lazy. Once I heard that, I was like, "Oh, I don't have to go out here and go crazy and market and create and focus on social media and all that stuff." I could, and literally, we've been building we have over 3,500 subscribers,
Love it.
and a lot of it came from the staff, the recommendation of from other platform, from other, newsletters on that platform, as well as, doing it. But I think when I started the newsletter, I was just, I'm an engineer at heart. Like, that's the way my brain functions. I see a problem, I try to figure out a solution to it. And it was more like we need. So my newsletter is a little bit different than most people's newsletters. It's more like a trade magazine or trade paper than it is an actual newsletter. Um, where I wanted to have a space where we could highlight Black content creators in the podcast industry, both professionally and as podcasters, and have our own platform where if you wanted to write an article, you could send it to me, and you didn't have to worry about me
Mm.
saying it's not in alignment with our mission or our messaging, because the whole point of the newsletter was to give a platform to Black voices in this space, and I wanted to highlight a lot of the Black voices that I was meeting that are around behind some of the biggest projects and some of the most successful projects that you never hear their names or hear them the accolades on their side, but they work at these companies, or they're working, or they're producing, or they're editing, or they're writing for, or for some of your most favorite podcasts. So that's why I started it. And once I committed to Substack, I think the part about platforms sometimes is you got to commit to it and give it an opportunity and learn how it works inside and out, and how you can use those tools. Now, what I will say about Substack is, when they added the live and all that stuff, I was like, oh, with the when they added the podcasting option and all, I was like, oh, we can do everything in this one spot. Um, which means I don't have to go out and find all these other different tools. I can keep it on this one ecosystem, and I would just make life a little bit easier for me, for somebody who's running something by himself. Whereas I don't have a whole team of, people that I can be like, "All right, you're in charge of this platform, you're in charge of that platform," and everybody just does what they have to do on there. So that's where really my necessity of, like, narrowing things down comes to, is like, how do I manage my time and keep myself from going into app purgatory, and try, and then then you're stuck, because now you're trying to figure out which ones to use.
Yeah.
I still go through it at times. I'm thinking about, like, switching my project management software to a different tool. And I'm like, part of me is like, don't do it. But the other part is like, no, the one that I have is not, it's limited. It doesn't give me the flexibility I need. So, there's always gonna be that conversation, but you got to commit a little bit to what to these platforms. You're just constantly switching platforms. And the other crazy, I think and this is a conversation we might have to have down the road, is I know some people switch their newsletter platforms. They go from, like, different, do different companies. And I always wonder, how does your audience respond to that? Because I know me, I'm like, oh, you was on ConvertKit, now you're on Bumble, what's that? Or you're on Substack.
Beehive. Yeah.
I was gonna say Bumblebee, but you're on Beehive. um, like, the way the information is disseminated and all that stuff, I might be like, "What's going on over here?
Yeah.
Why am I different?" I might even not realize that you switch platforms. I might just be like, why are I'm getting emails from you from different platforms now?"
No,
And so
that's a real question. And so that's why I have two newsletters. I have one on LinkedIn that's enterprise technology that focuses on that 301, 401, that deep in the weeds engineering conversation about technology. And then the one on Substack is more of the consumer tech. Right. It's more of
I like how you
that's
said 301, 401,
well, yeah, see,
404.
there you go. My engineering hat on too. Come on, brother. I got a whiteboard in the office. We can do some drawing if you need to. We can do so. You get it. But
Yeah.
that's exactly why I have those separate newsletters, because one audience expects something from you as opposed to another audience expecting something else. And I want to meet people where they are, as opposed to forcing everyone to, I'm only going to write one. And once in a while, I'll write about this. I'll write about cameras and microphones and lights. And then the next time I'll write about third party password management systems, like I did the other day. Right. So
Yeah.
just a different
Yeah.
conversation. I appreciate you for bringing that up too, because that's a real conversation that'll
And also
cost
the
you subscribers and viewers and
Yeah, because I know I'm unsubscribed. I've done it,
Yeah.
you know, especially if you have then, and I think part of the problem in this our space sometimes is that people are scared of being transparent, saying, "Hey, you haven't heard from me in a while because life's been life," and people will
Hmm.
understand that. And I always tell podcasters like one of the things that people loved about podcasting and why independent podcasters are so well loved by their audiences because they're before I guess pre-COVID or yeah, well, I'll say pre-COVID was people had no problem being transparent because there wasn't all this corporate money being involved in it. I mean, people wanted to make money off of it, but now it's like people are getting into podcasting because they see this as an avenue. They see the success of other people and they think they can copy that, not realizing that a lot of those people built it up by being transparent and connecting with
Yeah.
the audience. But
Yeah.
the moving around of platforms too, it shows you're inconsistent and if people are really watching you and paying attention to you, they might be like, "Why is he all over the place?" Like, so I try to narrow things down to that too, like, and say, "We're just gonna commit to this, and keep it simple."
That's the real one right there. There's a gem right there for folks. LTDs, lifetime deals. I give into them once in a while too, but I s- I watch them and I keep an eye on them. But
Yeah.
I say a lot of time people pay attention to what they pay for, and listen, I'm gonna stick with the ones that I know. I'm not. I've already built the foundation and a structure around these services, either this hardware, this software, or these service offerings. That's what I'm gonna do. But
I mean, we experienced that a couple months ago, right? We talked
yeah,
about this before, like, I was planning on using that tool. I mapped I spent months learning the tool. And I was like, "This is perfect for this is giving me everything exactly what I needed to do
right.
inside the community and make things so much easier." I was doing it for I was giving out free accounts to people because I had so many accounts. I was like, "Hey, you want to use this service? Let me know." Right? And then it failed. And then you're left sitting there holding the bag like when trying to find an alternative.
Man,
And you're trying to find alternatives close to what you're looking, what you were using, and you realize that this was a one-off thing, and then you're like, the engineer in me is like, "Oh, I should go get a couple programmers I know. We should rebuild it."
you
But
go build it your own, right? Just go
yeah,
fork
but
it somewhere and
yeah, but
build
that's
your own.
then you got to think about the time you have, and it's like, nah. But that's why you got to sometimes go in with a tried and true service that's been tested, battle
Hmm.
tested, that's
Hmm.
out there. Is the best avenue for you.
Man, that again, this was more selfish because I just needed to hear some of these comments as well, brother. So yeah, the audience, shouts out to y'all too. Y'all getting Corey Gumbs, but I needed to hear some of this stuff too, man. Listen, I won't be cognizant of your time, brother. I just again wanted to chop it up with you and talk about the BPA, talk about your journey, talk about how you manage the day to day, and like everyone, right, we're learning, and every day is a different day. We trying to juggle all the plates and spin the plates and do everything every single day, and it's a constant iteration. What's Now I'm gonna ask a hard question. What's next, right? So you got the newsletter, you got the association, you got different chapters coming out all across the globe. What's that next logical step for you and the BPA?
I'm always thinking about the value of to my to our community. What do they value? Um, For me right now, the next step is just trying to figure out how to bring money into the pockets of my community members. Finance is always important, and it's a little bit selfish because right now business model is focused solely on membership, and with things going the way they are in our economy and politically, people are going to start making hard decisions, and sometimes I understand that this is not a necessity. This is not like, if you can't feed your membership to the BPA is not going to feed your kid. It's not going to replace milk and bread and on your table. But if I can figure out how to bring money into the community and make everybody, create a true ecosystem, create a true community where it's self sufficient, it's almost for our own survival. And that's kind of where everybody's at. But I'm really gonna be focusing on one of the things I want to focus on for myself is I have a personal project that I'm going to start producing sometime this year about my journey as as a 47-year-old man that was diagnosed at 46 with autism and possible ADHD and the experience that I was going with that. So I'm working on a podcast for that. um, for the BPA, we're just gonna continue. I have the BPA Academy, which is going to be our education arm. I'm focusing on building that and bringing in experts in this space and really trying to push that. Get back into doing workshops monthly. Writing my first course, so that should be launching soon. That's been kicking my butt too. But look, man, you think it's simple and it's not. And
Yeah.
shout out to AI for helping me in a lot of
Yes,
spaces with that.
sir.
Otherwise, this would never get done. But we're doing that. But my main focus is really just growing membership, growing our membership, and really trying to really form better collaborations with our throughout the diaspora and supporting some of these other communities and some of these other initiatives that are going on in podcasting as a community as well. I do have some things I don't want to throw it out there yet, but we have some other things we're working on. But that'll come out. It's subscribe to the newsletter and you'll find
There
out.
you go. They're gonna hook right there.
Follow us on social media and you'll find out, or join the BPA because you're going to hear about it there first. So
Come on now. Come on now. There it is. Make it plain. Brother,
there we go. I'm gonna
listen.
plug it.
Yeah, Brother Gumbs, I appreciate you, man. This was dope. I really wanted to have this conversation, and the transparency and the day-to-day ups and downs, struggles and triumphs and all that stuff, man. That's really cool. I'm ready for that course. I'm ready for that book. I'm ready for that next podcast and everything, telling your
Oh,
story.
let's
Because
not even talk about books because I know some people. We know some people writing books right now.
we know some
I
folks
hear
that
them,
just
and I'm like, I don't
all they
want to
got
do
is
that.
the title to the book. They haven't. Okay, we're not going to throw anybody under the bus here, but that is what that is. It's all good. It's all good. Um, are you going to, was it podcast movement?
No, I'm not. Actually, this year I'm taking a step back on conferences.
Okay.
I'm not a big conference person. I did go to podcast movement last year. I'm going to support the Afros and Audio, which
Yeah, I was going to
I've
ask you
been
that too.
supporting them since for a while, since our inception. So Afros and Audio, and then uh, which you didn't mention earlier is that I sit on the board of Air Media.
Well, see,
One of
come on, the accolades are long, brother. The accolades. That
so
would have been a whole hour if I had gone over. But go ahead on with
my
yourself.
fellow board member Chioki, I'm sorry Chioki if you watch it so you catch this, man. I don't want to screw up your last name, but he's the founder of Resonate podcast festival down in Virginia and Richmond, and they do that every year. So I'm going to be going to that as well. I had a great experience last year. I learned so much being there, so I'm definitely going to be going to that one. But I'm not, and just to clarify, people, if that's your book thing, going to conferences, that's cool.
It's not for you, huh?
My mentality is that the money spent could be spent on inside my own business. So,
My goodness.
and sometimes they, some of these conferences utilize you and your presence to make money, and you don't get a piece of that. So, I'm trying to get myself to a point where I'm getting paid to come to your conference. I'm trying to be like y'all, like y'all
See,
bring
right there
those
you
out.
go. I see you're doing all right till you threw my stuff out there. See, okay, I'm going to NAB, but yeah, I'm being funded, But see, you didn't have to go and do all that.
Oh my bad.
Man,
I
I'm
didn't.
have to.
I mean,
I'm topping this out. This won't be in the live right here. Lord have mercy. Okay, Corey. God, got me all flustered.
look, man. Like, see, keeping it real gets too real.
God, you bring black folks on the show, and next thing, okay.
They tell you all your business.
Yes, sir. Man. Mm.
Nah, but
Continue on. Yeah.
I'm just, in my mind, it's especially for independent podcasters who are just getting started. You're spending a couple hundreds to thousands of dollars a year to go to these events.
Yeah.
And granted, yeah, the networking and cool, it's a cool experience, and it's good to see people, and that sometimes you only saw it on Zoom, but and you might only see them once or twice a year. From a business point of view, I'm like, that should be money I put into my marketing or hiring an editor or hiring
Truth.
a virtual assistant, something like that. You know, the conference is hopefully not going to will still always be there. And then you can go there and enjoy it in a different capacity versus, how you go there and then you're worrying about how to pay that credit card bill. You just spent 50 to get there and have
Mm-hmm.
fun and all that. You know.
Tell it. You speaking, boy. You speaking, folks. That's Corey Gumbs right there. You can see real conversations,
And
bruh.
you being in the tech space, I learned that from watching the stories of startups and how they blow through money, and you realize, a lot of the money wasn't just blown on engineering; it was blown on
Yeah.
pool tables and beer pong and all kind of stuff like that. So
I definitely cannot put this one on LinkedIn because I will have folks calling me and asking me, okay, yeah, see. You talking about the underbelly of some of these things now. So we don't
There's lessons to be learned in all of that stuff, and you got to
we're
learn how
gonna
to
have to
apply
make
them.
this premium content that now that folks are gonna have to pay membership to the BPA to get access to this one. I'm over here. Got me wringing my hands. We gonna end this conversation right now, ladies and
Yeah, I
gentlemen.
think we.
Hey, brother,
I'm gonna do
that
this.
yeah. We look at him flexing with some merch. Look, he got the shirt on. I know I got my shirt,
Oh
but
yeah,
put that mug up there.
they're all
Ooh,
available too. It's all available. Well,
is that right?
the
Okay,
link
I
is on
need
the
to get
bottom.
that link, man, because I need to get me a BPA, at least a mug there. I'm a coffee dude, so I need to get me a mug. That's dope. I didn't even know you had merch like that. I always see you wearing the shirts, and I thought it was just for you. I didn't know it was
But
for
this is,
the GP, the
you
general
know, where
public.
the merch is coming from. Where your recommendation.
Gangster. And he got QR codes. This man, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I learned from you. I learned from watching you guys. So
Don't try to make up. Don't try to smooth it over now. Don't see
I mean, that's serious.
you didn't try. You didn't. We done, y'all. See, we family, so we can talk like this, folks. Hopefully, you found some value in this conversation. If you did, let me know. If you did not, still let me know. That's Corey Gumbs right there. That's the founder. That's the CEO. That's the man behind the Black Podcasters Association. Brother, I appreciate you, and we'll connect in a little bit.
All right, thank you for having me.
Later, brother.